The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
Robin Danigan, nominee for the U.S. ambassador to Georgia, on Thursday said the Georgian government wants to comply with the international sanctions against Russia. Asked about the Georgian government's stance over the sanctions on Russia, Danigan noted that it's absolutely a priority for the U.S. to ensure sanctions compliance and implementation. According to the public information provided to BMG by the National State Property Agency, the state sold the most expensive property in Bogov for 26.7 million lari through direct sale in 2022. The company must invest at least 40 million lari directly or with the help of a third party within 84 months. According to the data of the business register, the list of partners of the company, Black Sea Paradise One, includes businessman Georgis Manidze, who is the chairman of the International Olive Council. In the first quarter of 2023, 63% of surveyed businesses claimed they will increase their total investments in 2023 compared to 2022. At the same time, 28% of the surveyed companies expect no change in their total investments, while only 9% expect a decrease in total investments, according to the report published by BAG Index. Amongst all four sectors, the construction sector conveyed the most optimistic expectations in the direction of the investment for 2023. According to the 2022 data, the negative natural increase was stated in Georgia. That's the difference between the number of live births and the number of deaths, equaling 6,799. A negative natural increase was registered in all regions except Tbilisi, Achara and Kvanchilashvili region. According to Geostat's report, the number of live births registered a 7.9% decrease from the previous year. As of February 2023, Georgia's foreign debt amounted to USD 8.26 billion, according to the Ministry of Finance. This amount was 130 million lari more compared to the same period of 2022. However, due to the strengthening of the national currency against euro and USD, the foreign debt amounts to 21.7 billion lari, which is 3.9 billion less year on year. This is The Checkpoints. I'm Elene Kvanchilashvili, author and the host of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to summarize business and economics week for you. The estimated real gross domestic product GDP growth rate amounted to 5.8% for February 2023 compared to previous year, and the average real GDP growth for January-February 2023 equaled 7.1%. In February 2023, the estimated real growth compared to the same period of the previous year was observed in the following activities: construction, financial and insurance activities, trade, transportation and storage. Declines were registered in manufacturing, real estate activities, professional, scientific, technical activities. Growth of VAT payers' turnover used in rapid estimates of economic growth was 11.7% year on year, and the number of newly registered enterprises increased by 57.3% year on year. This week, Dimitar Bogov, EBRD's chief economist, sat down with the Checkpoints in an exclusive interview to overview Georgia's economic results and prospects going further. Welcome to Tbilisi and welcome to the show, and thank you for taking our questions. First of all, please tell us, what is the purpose of your visit to Tbilisi?
Thank you for inviting me. These days we are here in Tbilisi to present our latest transition report. This is a flagship report of EBRD, and it offers a richness of very useful economic analysis which are characteristic for these unusual times in which we live.
Yes, exactly. First pandemic, now Russia-Ukraine war, and this war has created some opportunities for Georgia. You would probably agree, but should we mistake them for sustainable growth, this double-digit growth that we've had so far?
Yes, this is the right question, whether this is sustainable. It's good that Georgia had excellent growth rate last year, more than 10%. Georgia used the opportunity. Actually, this was a windfall that came to Georgia. It benefited a lot from this inflow of Russian immigrants and capital inflows. But yes, you're right. We should not mix this with sustainable economic growth. This was based on some temporary factors, and that's why we should be quite cautious for the future. For this year, for example, we think that Georgia economic growth will return to some long-term average.
Which is?
Which is around 5%. Georgia showed that it's capable to have growth rate of around 5%, which is excellent result, I would say, to have this in longer term. And we expect that Georgian economy will return to this growth rate this year and next year, close to 5%, maybe a little bit more. But this is something that Georgia can comfortably achieve.
You probably remember that, for example, Fitch Ratings said that this war had effect of positive shock on Georgia's economy. Then Moody's said that this war worked as a booster for Georgia's economy. What does the transition report of EBRD say about it? And how come that the projections that the government itself had while this war was just starting, they even said that Georgia might lose $2 billion because of this war?
Well, everybody expected a very negative impact from the war of Russia to Ukraine. And we should not undermine the negative implications. Negative implications are there. Maybe they were just temporarily overwhelmed by the positive impact on Georgia and some of other countries in the region. And this is good. This is good that this surprised us all. We were all very pessimistic last year. We expected severe negative impact, not just on Georgia, but it appeared that in short term there were very positive impacts. Nobody expected this, but they were here. However, in long term, these negative implications from this tectonic shift, I would say, with Russia invasion on Ukraine and everything that followed up afterward, Russian economy will suffer a lot of years to come, and we know that Russian economy is the biggest economy in the region. It's a quite important trade partner for many countries in the region, and this will have significant negative implications on longer term. But that means that all countries, and including Georgia, should look for alternatives and how to overcome these negative implications.
Since you mentioned the countries of the region, which countries would you identify also that that benefited from this war economically, of course, as Georgia did?
Armenia benefited, some Central Asian countries, even Azerbaijan, I would say, benefited from other source, from high prices of hydrocarbons and great demand for them, but still they benefited last year. And that's why we expect that these were just temporary effects for all these countries, and this year and in the years to come, they will return to some more normal operations.
So what is EBRD's outlook on Georgia's economy and the regional economy going forward?
Yes, in the near future we expect economic growth to return to some long-term averages, in all this region, including Georgia. And for long term, it will all depend of policies, but also on general economic development in the world.
Looking at the opportunities for Georgia that we hear, that's the Middle Corridor, that's the Black Sea cable project, that's beginning to appear more real in coming years. This is also the candidate country status that Georgia is aspiring to. I mean, how could Georgia capitalize on these opportunities?
Yes, you mentioned some of the most important factors that could be crucial in the period to come. Middle Corridor is an opportunity. So far in the past it was just considered as alternative corridor to the Northern Corridor and to the Southern Sea Corridor for transportation of goods from Asia to Europe, but now Middle Corridor receives a lot of attention. It all depends how this idea will develop. A lot of investments are needed, but this is a great opportunity because Georgia lies exactly in the center of this Middle Corridor, and it could transform Georgia into a logistical and transport hub, which could be a great opportunity. However, this is a long-term project, a lot of investments are needed, and probably a lot of involvement of international players and large companies is crucial.
Yeah, so what are some of the ways that Georgia can be more integrated into world and European economy?
Georgia is a small and open economy, and as such, it has to be well integrated into the world economy. It has to have high share of trade in its GDP. Georgia, I would say, is already well integrated, but it should be even more. The share of export to GDP should be more than 70%. Actually, this is shown by the most successful countries in Europe, like small Baltic countries who have exceptionally high share of export to GDP. And this is the only way for small economies. So far, Georgia is doing very well in export of services, but not so good in export of goods. And maybe this area, production of goods and export of goods, should be looked more carefully and create conditions to have investments and to have more export from these sectors.
What do you see currently in figures when you're analyzing the economic diversification of Georgia? Is Georgia getting more dependent on Russia's economy?
I would not say that. Actually, looking at foreign trade statistics data, we see that this share of export of Georgia to Russia is quite stable, between 10 and 15% of the total export of Georgia. The largest portion of export goes to EU, then neighboring countries. Actually, neighboring countries, export to Armenia, export to Azerbaijan, are almost equal to export to Russia. So from this point of view, I don't see increased dependence on Russian economy.
Also, some economists have raised arguments that it is Russia that could be getting, Russia's economy could be getting more dependent on Georgia's economy, especially its northern parts. And this might not be as bad considering the fact that there might be some kind of risk of aggression on Russia's side. Is it, does this assumption seem logical to you?
Judging by what we see in the economy, there's some logic in that. We see that many Russian companies, especially in IT sector, but also some international companies that were previously based in Moscow or St. Petersburg, now are moving away from there, and some found their a place in Georgia, in Tbilisi, and this is good for Georgia because Georgia becomes a center of the region for some of the companies, And certainly, more developed Georgian economy and more dependence of the neighboring countries, it's also good for security of Georgia.
Why didn't this double-digit growth, economic growth, prove to be inclusive in Georgia? Why people cannot feel these double-digit numbers on their pockets? Is the main challenge inflation here?
It's interesting observation, and certainly we all want to see more inclusive growth. Judging by data, so far there are not many that we can see. Unfortunately, not many data are available to have deeper insight into this issue. Judging from employment data, I would say that yes, it's true that women are less engaged in Georgian economy, and participation rate of women labor force is significantly lower than male labor force. So obviously there is an issue here, and we should all look for the ways how to increase the participation of women in the Georgian economy, as this could be additional boost for economic growth in Georgia. Judging by wage developments last year, I could see that most of the sectors enjoyed quite good real increase of wages. Not many sectors lagged in this area. So certainly, judging by all this, it's difficult to say whether we had inclusive growth or not, and whether all segments of the population enjoyed the high growth rate of last year. But it's true what you mentioned, that high inflation usually hurts more people with lower income, because larger proportion of their income goes on basic food and utilities. And we know that exactly those prices increased the most last year. And maybe because of that, their living standard was hurt a bit more than living standard of people with higher income, in which budget these items like food and energy are not so high.
So in this context, what you are telling me right now, this policy of Georgia and Georgian government to be open to Russian tourists, to Russian money, was it the right decision in these current circumstances?
Most probably it was, because Georgia just behaved as it should. It received those people who found refuge in Georgia. They're opening businesses here in accordance with Georgian regulation, and certainly they're operating in Georgia according to local laws and regulations. And from this point of view, inflow of this money was very positive for Georgia. And certainly, I would not say that there was another way to deal with this. At the end, accepting all those immigrants from Russia, maybe it could be also a humanitarian issue, because they were escaping Russia not to be mobilized in the war. So if you look at the issue from that point of view, again, Georgia did the right thing.
This is actually argument of the business as well. They are saying that this is their moment to do business with Russia because of the circumstances, and if they are not violating any rules that Georgia's government has, and if they are not violating international sanctions, then what's wrong in doing business with Russia? Again, in current circumstances, considering the war that we have been talking about, is this the right attitude towards doing business?
You know, always you have many aspects of this issue. One aspect is legality, and all these legal issues concerning the sanctions. As long as they are obeyed, there's no any issue here. But then there's another issue of, let's say, morality. Whether, Georgia should solidarize with Ukraine and not do business at all with Russia. But on the other side, not doing business at all, it would hurt Georgian citizens. It's a very hard moral dilemma, and certainly in many cases, countries look on the first place at the well-being of their own citizens.
And also looking at the region, what are some of the challenges in the region that might have a spillover effect on Georgia? And do you see, for example, these gas prices, persistent inflation that we have mentioned, shall these be the factors that will be weighing in on economic growth in the region and for Georgia as well?
Certainly, high gas prices and in general energy prices last year had significant impact on inflation in Georgia and also inflation everywhere in the world. Georgia so far dealt very well with inflation, and if we compare inflation in Georgia, it's on the same level as inflation in European Union. So from this point of view, and Georgia has one of the lowest inflation in this region of the world. So from this point of view, Georgia dealt quite well. Central bank did an excellent job. They acted very early, in the early stage of rising prices. And so far, we see that inflation is under control. It's gradually going down. This will not be reduced overnight, but this will be a process everywhere, even in developed economies. Nobody expects that inflation will come to the target immediately. It will take some time, but Georgia is on a good way. And as I said, this is also a good tool to deal with negative impact of inflation on people with lower income, because higher inflation, higher prices are hurting most those that are most vulnerable. And therefore, reducing inflation is also positive.
These immediate measures that the government of Georgia is taking, for example, price caps on medicine, for example, subsidies, employment programs, and so forth. Do you see? Do you think that these are the right steps to mitigate the challenges that you have?
So temporary measures, they could be the right measures, because we saw many countries applied such direct measures because of the extraordinary situation with inflation last year. But certainly they should be only temporary, and they should not be prolonged for too long.
Yes, and my last question, out of these 12 points that Georgia has as the precondition for the EU candidate status, which of them do you think will work for the benefit of Georgia's economy?
Actually, approximation to EU in general would be a great asset for Georgia. And therefore, it's important to work on all of this, because all of them are a condition for Georgia to advance in the EU accession. And we know that example of countries that joined EU earlier, in the process of accession, they enjoyed high level of convergence. So accession to EU is a great opportunity for Georgia to converge in income levels and to converge Georgian economy to the EU economy.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. It was my pleasure.
Perspectives of the Middle Corridor was on the agenda of the Checkpoint, yet another exclusive interview. Georgi Sakadze worked for the program. Our viewers and followers have probably heard of Trammo, a leading international physical commodities trading and logistics company at the heart of the global supply chain. They market, trade, distribute and transport raw materials critical to the fertilizer, petrochemical and mining industries, including being a market leader in anhydrous ammonia, sulfuric acid and petroleum coke with niche positions in finished fertilizers and nitric acid. Edward Weiner, president and CEO, sat down with Georgi Sakadze in an interview which also touched upon Trammo's investments in Georgia and beyond.
Mr. Weiner, sir, thank you so much for being with us.
It's a pleasure. It's nice to be back in your country again.
Fantastic. And we've been just talking with Mr. Mujiknali about the importance, about potential of the Middle Corridor.
Yes.
Unfortunately, not only for us, for the whole world, the Middle Corridor is becoming more important after the war happening in Ukraine.
Yes.
At the same time, we do all see and talking about potential of the Middle Corridor. How important it is and how it can be more efficient and effective for the whole country, region, and the world.
Yes. When we first set out on this project with our local partners, our wonderful WonderNet partners, the idea was to reopen the Silk Road and to take advantage of bringing product out of the Central Asian countries that are landlocked, that have a lot of raw materials that they needed to get to market efficiently. And the idea was that we were going to come across the Caspian Sea, bring it to Azerbaijan, put it on rail cars, bring it across to Georgia, put it in our beautiful new terminal in Batumi, and then bring it out to the world. In fact, the shipment that we just sent out, the Chevron product, is going to China.
China?
China.
Wow.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
It's the largest shipment, I believe, probably in your country,
Yes.
It's almost 48,000 tons of beautiful sulfur, which is going there. Yes, we're very excited about that. But the original idea was, you have Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and the idea was at the time to avoid the cold weather ports in Russia and the political problems in Iran, and to come through the middle. So world events changed, made it even more important. We're here, we're hoping to optimize it, we're hoping that we can expand not just through our terminal, but through additional infrastructure in Georgia, whether it's expansion in your railroads. I think it's very important that we do that. Expansion in new deep water ports. I think that will be very, very useful, very helpful. And we as Trammo are very excited with our partners to continue to participate and to be a partner with Georgia.
I'm going back to the very important case, in my understanding, Mr. Weiner. This is related to Chevron cargo, which is 46,000 cargo. Am I right?
Almost 48.
48,
sorry.
Yes.
My bad.
It's TCO is the name of the entity. It's a joint venture between Chevron and the Kazakhstan government. Yes.
That's it. This case, particular
Yes.
one, which was done and through WonderNet Express and I'm there because I've been there to your terminal, and it's really wonderful.
Thank you.
So I'm a part of it. How important is it going to be for the future cooperations with such big companies as...
It's very, very important, as you can imagine, within a large organization, a multinational organization such as Chevron, that they're able to make sure that they're in compliance with all sanctions around the world. Just overall being able to avoid any questions with regard to the transit of the product. It's very important, I believe, to them.
Trammo chose a few years ago Georgia as a destination for
Yes.
further investments. Why Georgia? What's so important?
We did our research on your country, and I believe at the time you were considered the 8th best country in the world to do business in. And
You mean by the World Bank ranking? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Correct.
And as far as all the factors in that, and we have a gentleman by the name of Vildan Bekarov, who's He's in our board and he's in charge of our sulfur business, and he made personal contacts with our wonderful partners from WonderNet, and we grew close, and we were able to do our first deal together. It was very exciting.
Good for you guys.
Yes.
Can we consider any plans coming from Trammo regarding further and future investments?
We are looking at everything as it comes up, where we will look at it and make sure that it makes sense, that it's competitive with the alternatives, and we've already made our first commitment, and we look forward to doing more in the future.
And now let me follow up with all the main economic news and outlook of the week in our short interview right now in the checkpoints.
According to Prime Minister Garibashvili, everything has been done by the government in order to genuinely fulfill all obligations regarding the 12 recommendations. Garibashvili announced this at the presentation of Anti-Corruption Bureau. As the Prime Minister stated, the fourth part of the 12-point plan meant the strengthening of the anti-corruption mechanism for which the Anti-Corruption Bureau was created. Last year, we were given 12 recommendations, which our government immediately began to implement. The Parliament has done a great job. Working groups have been created. Everything has been done and is being done on our side to ensure that all obligations to be fulfilled by the government are genuinely fulfilled. In this 12-point plan, the fourth recommendation implies the strengthening of anti-corruption mechanisms. And it's for this purpose that Anti-Corruption Bureau was created, said Garibashvili. Instead of strengthening state institutions being the cornerstone of democracy, the one-party system and its influence get stronger. Laws adopted in expedient manner serve your power's prolongation instead of serving democracy strengthening and citizens' welfare. The court reform, vital for the country's future, is at a deadlock, said Georgian President Salome Zurabishvili when delivering her annual report in the parliament. Salome Zurabishvili went on to say that the ruling party members speak in unison and those having different viewpoints tend to quit the party. You are the government of confronting the country's foreign goal, the people's mandate. By inviting Gavril in 2019, you raised doubts and questions for the first time, though the actual transformation began in 2021 when Georgian Dream former chairman Bidina initially quit politics, she said. President also recalled the annulling of the document drafted with the engagement of European Council President and rejection of the EU loan. The state-funded universal healthcare program with 7 billion lari in 10 years. Georgian Prime Minister Garibashvili said at the event dedicated to the 10-year anniversary of the state program for universal health care. During 10 years, the state financed the programs with 7 billion lari. In doing so, we have actually made radical transformative changes in this sector. For comparison, I would like to tell you that if earlier only 40% of the population had access to medical care, today this figure has increased to 94%. 94% of our population benefits from the universal healthcare program, which of course is a great result, the head of the government said. According to the second stage of the reform, the minimum wage limit for nurses, assistants and sanitary workers should be determined, Health Minister Zurabazarashvili said. As he notes, as a result of the reform carried out last year, the minimum salary was determined for 70,000 doctors and nurses. The next stage of the reform must determine minimum wage limit for other medical personnel involved in patient care, such as nurses, assistants and sanitary workers who don't have a defined minimum salary, Zurabazarashvili said. Effective January 1, 2023, Georgian Health Ministry introduced hourly wages for doctors and nurses. The ministry explained that the salary increase would affect up to 9,000 doctors and over 8,000 nurses. The National Competition Agency of Georgia has started investigating 4 companies in the pharmaceutical market. As stated in the information released by the National Competition Agency, the issue is related to the sharp increase in prices of chronic and oncological medicines by the importers and sales companies and the setting of identical pricing. The investigation was based on the information and statements made public by the Ministry of Health regarding the compatibility of actions of pharmaceutical companies with the competition legislation. The investigation started in 2 directions, which implies the possible abuse of the dominant position and the possible restrictive agreements of competition. Companies under investigation and pharmaceutical associations will have the opportunity to present their position explanations in this process, the information reads. On March 29, the Monetary Policy Committee of National Bank of Georgia decided to keep monetary policy rate unchanged. The monetary policy rate stands at 11%. Despite certain stabilization signs, inflation remains a global challenge. In Georgia, annual inflation is still high but follows a downward trajectory. In February, headline inflation decreased to 8.1%, while core inflation dropped to 6.6%. The decline in inflation is mainly due to the external factors. In particular, international oil prices have been decreasing recently, whereas international shipping costs have also approached the pre-pandemic level. In addition, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the International Food Price Index continues to decrease. The National Bank of Georgia continuously monitors the developments in the economy and financial markets and will use all available tools to ensure price stability. The next meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee will be held on May 10, 2023.
Georgia Capital plc, the company or GCAP, announces the sale of 3 assets of its hospitality business. First, 2 operational hotels in Tbilisi currently managed under the Ramadan Core brand, and second, vacant land plot. The aggregate consideration received from the transactions amounted to US $28 million and will be utilized to deliver the hospitality business's balance sheet. Accordingly, the net debt of the business will decrease by 76% from US dollars of 37 million as of 31 December of 2022 to US dollars 9 million. The sales have no impact on GCAP's last reported NAV. Following the sales, the hospitality business will retain various assets, including 1 operation hotel managed under the brand name Gudauri Lodge and 3 hotels at different stages of construction progress, in addition to several land plots in Georgia. Coincidentally, Gudauri Lodge has been mentioned in a recent New York Times article. Irakli Gilauri, Georgia Capital Chairman and CEO, commented, "I'm pleased to announce the successful completion of these disposals from our hospitality business. The transactions mark further progress towards our strategic priority to divest over the next few years subscale portfolio companies. At the same time, the significant cash proceeds from the sales will improve the hospitality business's leverage profile in line with Georgia Capital's wider deleveraging strategy." And on to our reporter Natia Taktakishvili, who will help us summarize the main business news and outlook for this week for our viewers and followers.
Porsche Center Tbilisi offers its customers to extend their car warranty up to 15 years. In case of purchasing a car at Porsche Center, the client receives a 3-year warranty. After the end of this term, Porsche Center Tbilisi gives the opportunity to use the official Porsche warranty conditions for an additional 12 years. In order to get a warranty, it's mandatory to pass a special inspection, which means checking the current condition of the vehicle. In order to benefit from the warranty, the mileage of the vehicle must not exceed 200,000 kilometers. Porsche Center Tbilisi offers customers a 20% discount in case of purchase of 3-year warranty service before April 30. The center is included in Tegeta Holding. The company has been operating on the Georgian market since 2011. A premium ice cream producer company, Luca Polari, continues to expand and with an investment of $50,000 opened another branch in metro city Batumi. According to the company, this is Luca Polari's fifth branch in Batumi. The facility located in the shopping mall offers guests a full range of ice cream as well as hot and cold drinks. Along with the addition of new branches in Batumi, the number of our employees increases. At this stage, 10 local young people have enjoyed our team after the trainings, Teta Bakari, director of the company, noted. Luca Polari offers customers up to 80 types of ice cream and exclusive coffee. The brand has been operating in the Georgian market for 15 years and is currently presented in 5 cities across Georgia. The company has 15 branches in Tbilisi, 5 in Batumi, 1 in Kebuleti, Kutaisi and Rustavi. Nino Nodia, public relations manager of the perfume, cosmetics and personal care products store Vulovu, says that the company has overcome the problems related to the pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine war. As she notes, the situation is getting steadier from spring. According to her, the perfume, cosmetics and personal care products store continues to work in the same mode as before the pandemic. After stagnation, I think there will be progress as the number of customers visiting the store increases. We see that the logistical problems related to the war and the pandemic are resolved gradually. The suppliers and our company found the way to cooperate with each other, Nino Nodia explained. Vulovu is operating in the Georgian market since 1995. Its main activity is distribution of niche perfume and cosmetic brands in Georgia. Sviat Kuraspediani, the founder of restaurant Barbarestan, says that the restaurant increased salaries by at least 20-25% after the pandemic. According to him, this is not still the amount that the employees should take. The owner of the restaurant notes as soon as the business turnover increases, the salary of the employees will be revised again. Post-COVID inflation was high and it became necessary to increase salaries for the employees. I think their salaries should be increased further. As for me, I prefer satisfied employees because they are more productive at work. Tourist flow have increased and the forecast is more optimistic this year, says the owner of the restaurant. Executive Director of In Group, Erekle Kokaya, states that the freestyle and snowboard World Championship in Bakuriani was a significant event not only for this hotel but also for the hospitality sector in general. According to him, the income received by the hotels was significantly up, as Erekle Kokaya In Group hosted sportsmen from 16 countries during this period. The occupancy rate of the Bakuriani Inn stood at 100%. The number of reservations in the hotel increased by 15% compared to the same period of the last year. The hotel room price increased by 30-40%. Until now, Bakuriani was mostly visited by local tourists, so this championship contributed to the promotion of Bakuriani on the European and not only European markets, Kokaya said. The World Championship of Freestyle Snowboarding and Frisk was held in Bakuriani for the first time. The first World Championship in Bakuriani started on February 16 and continued up to March 5. A new wine brand, Historia Wine, appeared on the Georgian market. A presentation of sparkling wine was held last week. As Natia Mamalashvili, co-founder of the company, told BMWG, the idea of creating a different drink came together with Anna Kaminenske in January of this year. According to her, they have used laboratories and special technologies to create the glittering wine. The glittering mixture we use in production is a completely safe food additive tested in a laboratory, which is also often used in confectionery production, Natia Mamalashvili explained. As for the assortment of Historia Wine, according to its co-founder, the brand produces only semi-sweet white wine at this stage, although it's planned to add new flavors in the future. Glittering wine will appear in the chain of local markets and the price of one bottle will be 59 lari. According to Mamalashvili, it's planned to export the wine outside the borders of the country in a few months. Chateau Athénée has opened cottages in the village of Ateni, Gori municipality. According to Kvanchilashvili, representative of Chateau Ateni, the construction has been going on for 6 months and in total 160,000 lari was spent along with the improvement of the yard. The cottage can accommodate 3 adults with 2 children or 4 adults. The chateau offers breakfast, lunch and dinner on the site. We tried to make everything comfortable and we think it worked, Kvanchilashvili said. According to him, booking of newly opened cottages has already started. Chateau Ateni was opened with the support of Enterprise Georgia. The alcoholic beverage production company Niamori is planning to open a new wine cellar near Tbilisi late in 2023. According to the director of the company, Kvanchilashvili, the wine cellar will host locals as well as foreign guests. Niamori has already purchased 5,000 bottles of wine in 2023 and the product is sold both in Georgian and foreign markets. The company does not own vineyards and gets grapes from local farmers. As Kvanchilashvili notes, Niamori does not plan to grow vineyards in the future. Speaking about the future plans, director of the company says that Niamori is conducting negotiations on exports with the Baltic and European countries. Company Niamori was founded in 2016 and it began to operate actively from the fall of 2017. At this stage, the company employs 15 people. Niamori wine price ranges from 60 lari to 445 lari.
And before we say goodbye, let me tell you about the Caucasian infrastructure technology, which has been operating in Georgia for 10 years. It expanded further and opened a new branch in Kutaisi. The Georgian-Austrian company, accredited in accordance with ISO standards, offers its customers both laboratory inspection of construction works and supervision work. The construction laboratory, equipped with the latest European equipment, conducts research in full compliance with international standards. The company's competence is determined by the Accreditation Center for a period of 4 years, which checks it annually.
Georgian Austrian construction laboratory Caucasian Infrastructure Technology is now in Kutaisi. This means that the company, which is an accredited laboratory in accordance with ISO standards, will be able to provide services for ongoing projects and constructions in West Georgia faster and with easily available resources. Caucasian Infrastructure Technology carries out both laboratory and supervisory activities of construction works and offers services both to infrastructure companies participating in state tenders and to private individuals.
We opened a new branch in Kutaisi with an investment of 1 million lari. It is important that local people will be employed here, as well as the area and scale of building quality requirements and inspections will increase further, and with our representative office in Kutaisi, we will be able to serve more people.
This company operates in Georgian market with considerable experience. As you know, there is also international investment here, and I think the issue of inspection is very important and will regulate the areas related to the quality of construction.
Caucasian Infrastructure Technology has been operating in the Georgian market for 10 years. During this period, the company has implemented the supervision process of a number of large infrastructure projects, constructions of roads and bridges. The construction laboratory uses modern technology in the inspection process and is guided by full compliance with the standards set by European norms.
We are working for especially in quality control for asphalt, unbound-based materials, cement-treated base layers, and also especially for concrete. And this is very important to increase the quality and with the target to make the roads and the buildings safe. The most testing machines that you can see are from Germany and also from Italy. We have used these in the last years for more than 10 years.
We control the quality of the concrete, so we can see how much strength the concrete can take after a certain time, because the development of the strength of the concrete is always over time. It's not, you need, for example, 28 days to get the right quality. There are many different sorts of concrete, so we have to check if the concrete that we see in the building is really concrete that the engineers want to have, because visually you see no difference. So we have to test it, and to continue the high quality of a building.
Caucasian infrastructure technology makes a detailed analysis of each construction work and analyzes the laboratory results in accordance with the technical requirements. In addition, during the construction process, it provides preliminary recommendations to users, which gives them the opportunity to avoid possible risks and implement projects according to international standards.
Our end product is a report, yeah? We're producing the report, the paper, as a certificate, saying, okay, these construction materials are, the content of it is enough according to standard or not. Let's say if it's, you can use this to construct or not, or you need to change it a bit. So that's why we can also doing some recipes like for production of concrete mixes, asphalt mixes.
The Georgian-Austrian Construction Laboratory is granted accreditation for a period of 4 years, and after that monitoring is carried out every year to see how well the laboratory operates in accordance with the standards defined by the accreditation and how correctly it ensures the annual monitoring of measuring devices. The company also provides continuous employee training every year. As company representatives say, taking into account all these components, they give customers a solid guarantee of getting the best results.
And that's all for today. We will meet next Sunday, 11 a.m. sharp. Before that, follow us on bm.g and forbes.g and stay tuned.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.